Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
You know, with all of these, you could call them conspiracy theories, or you could call them alternate narratives. What's becoming visible is incredible distrust in scientific and political authority.
The problem is that we were not in a condition of health. If we had been in a condition of health, this would never have happened. We're not set up to take care of collective catastrophe.
The idea behind the saeculum was that mankind was bound to make the same mistakes over and over again because there would be no first-hand witness left alive to remind him of his mistakes of the past.
This film is brought to you thanks to the generous gift of many people's life's work and also the incredible infrastructure that brings lifetimes of information and media to your screen in seconds. Another proud sponsor is this global quarantine and the surrounding narrative. Corona, the virus of fear and illusion. Where does that crown lie today? And what will be the new normal after spring quarantine? Perhaps we've never had a grasp on what is normal to begin with. All we have are patterns nested within patterns, nested within patterns, lulling us into a deep sleep or calling us to awaken them and explore beyond. It takes time for this kind of control mechanism to take hold, but it only takes an instant to snap out of it.
Scientists discover sick patients are infected with a new strain of coronavirus, according to Chinese state media. Coronaviruses are a large family of viruses that include the common cold. At this point, there are no documented instances of human-to-human transmission.
December 2019 in Wuhan, central China. Something strange was happening to the residents. People were suddenly falling ill. This mystery flu was in fact a new infectious virus, and one that threatened to spread rapidly. The link was a seafood wholesale market in Wuhan, where exotic livestock was also being sold. All the patients had visited or worked there.
Zoonotic disease, by the simple definition, means it's animal to human.
Scientists were racing to learn more about this novel coronavirus. And on the 11th of February, 2020, the World Health Organization officially named it SARS-CoV-2. Scientists in China quickly made a breakthrough and identified the pathogen as a coronavirus.
SARS-CoV-2 seems to be more transmissible than SARS. There are some people who might be infected with a virus, and at no point do they develop any symptoms whatsoever. So they don't even feel tired or have muscle aches and pains. They are asymptomatic. And that can become quite concerning because we then don't know what the background level of viral infection is in the population.
The clearinghouse for all the information today is the World Health Organization. And WHO takes that information, sifts through it, makes sure that what they have is valid, and then they do a regular, almost daily risk assessment and the evidence they have and makes recommendations.
China has instituted the greatest effort to reduce travel that we've seen in modern history.
Across the world, one by one, cities came to a shutdown.
Problem? Reaction. Solution?
For most diseases, you don't pursue more than one or two approaches. Here, because of all the incredibly negative effects, the sooner the better.
Microsoft founder Bill Gates has called on the countries of the G20 to provide more funding to develop a coronavirus vaccine and to work together to make sure any vaccine is affordable for everyone. In an opinion piece provided Sunday exclusively via South Korea's Yonhap news agency, Gates said at least $2 billion will be needed for vaccine research by the group known as the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations.
It looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. We're not ready for the next epidemic. The WHO is funded to monitor epidemics, but not to do these things I talked about.
This is a chart of the 2008 financial crisis. Over the course of 517 days, the stock market dropped by more than 56%. Millions of people lost their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. It was the worst time for the global economy since the Great Depression. Now, this is the 2020 economic collapse so far. Over the course of just 21 days, the market has dropped by roughly 20%. The world has seemingly shut down, and we just might be on the worst economic trajectory in history. So how did we get here, and what could we expect going forward?
In just a few short months of quarantine, over 20 million jobs have been lost and growing. What if you're a small business, an employee, a contractor with no work? What about what's happening emotionally? Are people treating this like an extended vacation? Or waiting for word from the screens in their house on how to proceed next? Some homes might be experiencing abuse. Some abuse is less obvious and more systemic. But don't talk too loudly about that, folks. As forward and progressive as humans can be today, it's still an unwritten rule. Don't talk about conspiracies and ruin my latte. I have a lot of Netflix and anxiety to get through before work. Bills, pills, and problems. Don't tell me the world is after me too. No. The world is most definitely not after you. But our karma, planetary-wide, has arrived on shore. Because we've refused to look for so many years and so many reasons at the darkness inside. The price of our convenience, the reverberations of a society with lots of power and less wisdom on a shrinking timeline. All signs from mainstream to conspiracy point towards a coming decade of large-scale change, a new age of technology, layoffs, globalization, surveillance, control, and massive opportunity for awakening. If you're not in the mood or do not deem yourself fit to ruin your latte right about now, no shame, no blame. Close this video and maybe consider some Nako or Peya. Go chill, you deserve it. For those of you eager to hear an opinion-laden diatribe over top music and fair use content to flesh out a complex world scenario with a simple and singular solution, then get your latte ready.
First, the arrest today of a Harvard University professor for lying about his participation in a Chinese foreign recruitment program. Second, this morning we've unsealed a separate indictment of a Chinese national working as a scientific researcher at Boston University who failed to mention on her visa application that she is also a lieutenant with the People's Liberation Army. Finally, this office has indicted another Chinese national for trying to smuggle vials of biological material out of the United States to China and lying about it to federal investigators.
It's a bioweapon. And how do I know that? Gee, maybe it's because this virus was originally found in a meat market within 5 miles of the only biosafety level 4 laboratory in China.
Mainstream media doesn't talk much about those confiscated vials of liquid. Alternative sources tell me it's a bioweapon. The theorist in me smells conspiracy afoot, but I'm not convinced either way.
On October 16, 2014, the Obama administration, wary of the potential threats to public health from the gain-of-function GOF research into SARS, MERS, or influenza, announced through the National Institute of Health that it was suspending funding into similar research. The funding pause included Xi Jinping's research project, genetic engineering of SARS-like coronavirus in bats, a collaborative effort with Dr. Ralph Barrick, a virologist at the University of North Carolina. Second, after the Wuhan outbreak, Indian researchers compared the S protein sequence between 2019 nCoV and SARS. They discovered that 2019 nCoV had 4 new sequences inserted, all of which can be found in HIV sequences through a search on GenBank. Xi Jinping discredited those observations, although she never denied the existence of the 4 inserted sequences. However, scientists probing GenBank found that there were only 3 viruses containing all sequences. The first is the HIV virus itself. The second is a bat coronavirus discovered by Xi. And the third is this new Wuhan coronavirus.
Dr. Judy Mikovits was the first OG working on HIV and XMRV before Dr. Anthony Fauci allegedly republished her work as his own and had her arrested, effectively ruining her reputation in the science community. Wikipedia says that her theories were fact-checked and found to be either false or not based in scientific evidence. Well, that's a leading statement. He either didn't do it, making it false, or there's no scientific evidence because the science community hasn't published their own evidence. All the evidence is so far in the alternative media that isn't on the payroll. But that's my speculation. By the way, Fauci isn't a stranger to the Wuhan Virology Lab, nor is George Soros or Bill Gates. Okay, what about the numbers of the pandemic?
This is exactly equivalent to any other typical seasonal year of influenza outbreak. World's top qualified epidemiologist has also shown his data showing, especially data taken from the Diamond Princess cruise ship infection rate, which also showed the similar rates of 0.03 to 0.9 maximum in a worst case scenario in the worst of the hotspots.
If someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death.
Now, I can't imagine if someone comes in with coronavirus, goes to an ICU, and they have an underlying heart condition and they die, they're going to say cause of death, heart attack.
What do you say to those folks who are making the claim that the number of COVID-19 deaths are being padded?
You will always have conspiracy theories when you have very challenging public health crises. They are nothing but distractions.
Ouch, Fauci. You see, I like to listen to all sources, including you. I don't call any media a distraction. They all tell a few facts, entertain exaggeration, bend the narratives. Pure science doesn't get ratings. Spin does. So sit back while I spin a few narratives away from the mainstream.
As a nurse of 35 years, I'm also an independent nurse prescriber, I'm also a personal nutritionist, is when I have seen symptoms of pneumonia in patients, they will go downhill rapidly. They will start to develop a cough, they'll have a temperature, they'll get very unwell, they won't have any energy. And what we're seeing with these cases in Wuhan, we've all seen it on social media, is these people suddenly just fall over and they have a dry cough. I have never seen a patient be walking along, doing their own thing, and suddenly fall over because they've got pneumonia. It just doesn't happen. However, it does happen with 5G. But what 5G actually does, it absorbs oxygen, and that's really important to know. This 5G is absorbing the oxygen, and then your hemoglobin can't take up the oxygen. So how long do you think it's going to take the human body to fall over because it suddenly cannot take up oxygen? 5G was rolled out in Wuhan in the autumn of 2019.
It was the test area, wasn't it?
It was the test area.
Yeah.
I can't help but say something about this whole coronavirus thing, if you want me to.
Yes.
So, again, when you know Steiner, you have the answers to the test, but you have to then figure out the details. In 1918, after the biggest pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, Steiner was asked, what was this all about? And he said, well, viruses are simply excretions of a toxic cell. Viruses are pieces of DNA or RNA with a few other proteins. They bud out from the cell. They happen when the cell is poisoned. They are not the cause of anything. I had a dramatic example of this when I was growing up. Right outside our house, there was a wetlands, and they were full of frogs, and the frogs kept me up at night, so I taped the windows, and in the spring they made a big racket. And then over time, the frogs were all gone. How many thinks the frogs had a genetic disease? How many think that frogs had a virus? How many think somebody put DDT into the water? That's what happened. Diseases are poisoning. Every pandemic in the last 150 years, there was a quantum leap in the electrification of the Earth. In 1918, late fall of 1917, there was the introduction of radio waves around the world. And then starts in World War II with the next pandemic with the introduction of radar equipment all over the Earth. You can read about this in a book called The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg, who chronicles all the steps in the electrification of the Earth and how within 6 months there was a new flu pandemic all over the world. And when you hear the normal explanations, how did it go from Kansas to South Africa in 2 weeks? So the entire world got the symptoms at the same time, in spite of the fact that the mode of transportation was horseback and boats, and there's no explanation for it. They just say, we don't know how that happened. People are poisoned, they excrete toxins, they look like viruses. People think it's a flu epidemic. There has been a dramatic and quantum leap in the last 6 months with the electrification of the Earth. And I'm sure a lot of you know what that is. It's called 5G, where they now have 20,000 radiation-emitting satellites, just like the radiation-emitting thing in your pocket and on your wrist and that you use all the time. That is not compatible with health. I'm sorry to say it, it's not compatible with health. That is a water destructuring device. And for any of you who say, yeah, well, we're not electrical beings, we're just physical matter, then don't bother doing an EKG or an EEG or a nerve conduction test, because we are electrical beings and the chemicals are only the byproduct of those electrical impulses. And I'll finish with, anybody want to make one guess as to where the first completely blanketed 5G city in the world was? Exactly. So when you start thinking about this, we are in an existential crisis here, folks.
The telco insider whose mobile phone tower protest went out of control is back. Now, he drove a tank down city streets, destroying transmitters to highlight what he saw as dangerous tower emissions. Now, of course, he was sent to jail for that, but the former technician hasn't changed his mind about the health effects of mobile phone towers.
5G engineers have been threatened in the UK, and people have been trying to burn down 5G masts because of this. Guys like this are pushing out viral videos with over 500,000 hits, and the audiences love it. 5G just causes cells to detoxify themselves with coronavirus. Now, if they wanted to demonstrate their hypothesis, all you would have to do is irradiate a cell culture with 5G, and boom, it should start doing something like this. In fact, you wouldn't even have to irradiate it specifically with 5G, because every cell culture in every biochemistry lab around the world should magically start producing coronavirus when they turn on the 5G. And oddly enough, not one person around the world made that observation.
While I don't believe that telecommunications technology is causing viral infections, I do believe that we are beings of frequency, and it would be silly to think that telecom companies don't employ the same tactics as big tobacco, such as, there is no evidence to our knowledge that our product is dangerous. It seems like a conflict of interest, but regardless, I want to know why 5G technology is the talk of the town.
With the proliferation of cell phone technology and also wireless internet, broadband, and satellites, as well as cell phone towers and microwave towers, in the book you say that we're on the verge of a whole new generation and wave of an increase of all of that.
We are, and it's been in the news lately. It's called 5G. And it's being planned both on Earth and in space. On Earth, the telecom companies are gearing up for this new thing that they're calling the Internet of Things, that's going to be served by a kind of service that they're calling 5G wireless technology. And it's going to be totally different than the kind of cell phones and internet connections that we have now. It's actually going to be phased arrays, which is not in my book, because when I wrote my book, this was not on the drawing board yet. But it's going to require small cell towers, antennas on existing utility poles is how they're going to do it, on every block in every city in the world, spaced about 200 to 300 feet apart throughout the world. They're going to use millimeter waves. Each cell site is going to have thousands of tiny antennas in it, focusing beams at your cell phone, at your wireless hub in your house. The intensity of radiation that we'll be hit with will increase astronomically. The second thing that's on the drawing board is doing this from satellites in space. And only recently, Elon Musk of SpaceX, just last week, he got permission from the FCC to launch his first 4,425 satellites into space. That's already been granted. Eventually, SpaceX's plans are for 12,000 satellites completely blanketing the Earth with phased array antennas, super high-speed internet from only 200 miles in altitude. They're going to irradiate every square inch of the Earth. There's going to be no place remote enough where you're not getting irradiated. The fact that these are still hundreds of miles above our heads is not reassuring in light of what has happened historically. That every time we have dramatically changed the properties of the Earth's electromagnetic field, which is called the magnetosphere, it has had dramatic effects on health down here on Earth.
Okay, 5G is a telecommunications platform. It's supposedly irradiating us with harmful frequency emissions. It's not just from Earth, but now it's from space, and citizen journalists are taking to the streets with consumer-priced technology to tell the story of what it's doing to our health. Remember that there are people in every circle all around the world that want a healthier and more harmonious global control network. Great. Not that any of us has control over anything but our actions, but when people in droves unite around a common purpose, no matter their intention, shit gets done. I'll revisit this when I explain my view on why everything that's happening right now is perfectly orchestrated for a mass awakening. So I brought EMF expert Brian Hoyer to my office space at the time to see just how much and how many types of radiation there are around us.
This is taking a body measurement, what your body's being exposed to from all around, all the cell phone towers and everything. This is showing the different types of frequencies. So the 3G there is more than likely the cell phone towers, and there's some Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and then some CDMA 850. That's another cell phone tower over here. So you can kind of see it. And then this is pinging every once in a while here. That's a cell phone.
That's a cell phone right there, yeah.
So someone's cell phone is pinging the tower, checking status updates.
Gotcha.
When I'm in the bedroom, I want to see there not be anything lighting up.
Anything at all, yeah.
Your nervous system can sense all of these sounds, and the way that that's going into the body disrupts the whole nervous system. All those voltage-gated calcium ion channels.
Yeah.
And likely some of the other voltage-gated channels.
Dude even showed me where the Earth-generated frequency lines were in relationship to my desk. Now earlier, Dr. Thomas Cowan was talking about the 5G coronavirus connection. Here's some research to the contrary.
Okay, so there are no active commercialized systems based on 5G active in Canada at the moment, so that doesn't really bode well for our theory. How about South America? Again, you probably heard there were infections in Brazil, there's stuff going on in Argentina. So then we look at the actual 5G deployments in South America, and it looks like there's one kind of down there near Uruguay, but that's pretty much it. So again, that also doesn't bode well for our theory. And finally, we can take a look at France. So here's a nice map of France. As you know, France was one of the hardest hit European countries. Fortunately, I live in the southwest of France, where there's hardly anything. And so that's COVID-19 in France, and here we have the map of actual 5G deployments in France. Oops, there is no 5G in France.
The Eastern Bloc, said that this radiation is dangerous, and they adopted standards 1,000 times lower than the United States. There's so much money to be made to deploy unlimited amounts of systems. The National Toxicology Program has confirmed that the FCC's standard upon which American industry relied is wrong.
So if your child is playing in a playground or is at a school where there's one of these cell phone towers, and next year that cell phone tower is going to be on steroids as we develop 5G technology, you're saying that parent should be concerned of an increase of disease or some kind of radiation affecting that child, point blank. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Some are saying there's a conspiracy to inflate anti-5G propaganda to interfere with the US catching up with China, which we'll cover in a moment. Others say the conspiracy comes from the other side, to whitewash the science warning against EMF increase and the technology's ability to single you out and surveil you wherever you are, which we're also about to cover. The jump in the capacity to transfer data, in comparison, is that 4G is like a garden hose of information, while 5G is like the channel. Let's just say very reputable sources are giving completely polar expert opinions, and the side that stands to benefit the most, at least financially, tells us that it's completely safe. Could be a conflict of interest, but I'll stay neutral for now. When are these pot-smoking conspiracy theorists going to stop drawing irrelevant correlations between things like the back of the 20-pound note and this thing that does look a lot like the coronavirus symbol at the top? And yeah, that does look like a 5G tower. It does look like it's emitting radiation. The purpose for showing this information is not to make you think one way or the other. The purpose is to get you to worry less about thinking that you have to know the details of the mystery in order to proceed intelligently in this world. When we just pick up a theory that seems to fit what we believe about the world, or one that was put well by someone we trust, we tend to let that outer reality deeper into our inner world. I say be skeptical of every theory, the conventional ones, the fringe ones, hell, even the self-generated ones. If you haven't seen the data or witnessed the event yourself, you may not be getting the whole story, and even if you do witness it yourself, that doesn't mean you'll understand it. Be neutral and move forward, trusting that you can learn a great deal by sharpening the blade of your discernment regardless of what you believe. And I discern that 5G seems to be a reality many people aren't talking enough about in terms of what these frequency emissions are doing to the human body and mind.
Microwave-induced water has very deleterious effects on plant growth. They'll feed one plant, spring water or well water, and it grows up nice and happy. And they'll actually nuke some water. Shows that it actually has very damaging effects on the plant, because the plant actually takes this water up and it doesn't actually have a correct harmonic for communication of the signals for growth and for the actual plant cells to talk within themselves. So this is a serious problem, and what it does to human tissue is absolutely no different whatsoever.
There goes your latte. Wi-Fi sounds pretty shitty to health, not gonna lie. And rumor has it, as of 4G, the world has over 100 million times more radiation than our grandparents lived through. I hope all of you understand that we are water-based creatures. We need water to survive, and not just any water. Clean water, mineralized water, structured water. The health effects of 5G on the body quickly gave way to another core issue that fewer people are talking about. Why all the focus on China with this virus? Why the connection to 5G? On a political strategy level, why are we all quarantined at home for a virus with an infection and mortality rate that barely rivals the seasonal flu?
When I think Trump tweeted out something in 2014, and he said, remember, China is not our friends or not our ally. And it got like 300 retweets. It wasn't something big. He tweeted this back in 2014 or 2015. And then all of a sudden, one day, everybody in the news is talking about 5G. And prior to that day, we weren't really talking about it. And all of a sudden, hey, we got to be the leader in 5G. I'm like, 5G? So I'm going to start looking 5G. Okay, 1G, 2G, 3G. 1G is the regular phone back in the days. 2G is whatever. 3G is the iPhone, and then 4G is the latest phone. And then now 5G is going to be changing the game. And most people go to, 5G is just a faster phone.
So private devices. Take the cloud away from it. Just look at the device itself.
Sure.
It's meant to be a private device.
Right.
Why? It's American product. Fast forward, to 2009, China starts to look at that, says, okay, we want to dominate the next level, right? Not just the technology, we want the apps, services, and business models to be Chinese companies. And so Huawei gets hundreds of billions of dollars to develop 5G and ZTE. But then you have Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. So they're behind the Chinese firewall. They're protected. You can't have the fangs going in there. It's just the bats that control the e-economy within China. And then you start, at the same time you're developing 5G, and you're starting to see the emergence of the 5G world in China. So you walk into a restaurant after you've ordered your food, and a camera picks you up, and you say, hey, David, welcome, here's your food, right? So you're starting to get the feel of what a 5G world is. And what is a 5G world? The platform is the network. So this is mobile computing paired with a pipe. 5G is computing and networking combined on the same platform. So this goes away. You walk outside your door and you say Uber. You don't get on your phone and say, I want an Uber. You just say Uber. Camera picks up your face or a microphone picks up you.
Come on.
That's what 5G is. That's what 5G is. And then the Uber shows up. There's a camera on the car that sees you, knows who you are, don't have to ask you your name. You get in and you go to wherever you want. You get out and you go do whatever you want. So in this world, in the 4G world, this is a platform. It's yours, right? You don't want to be part of that, all of that data. Remember we just talked about how do you influence society? You don't want all that data to be out there about what you're doing. Just don't carry one of these, right? Just opt out. In a 5G world, you cannot opt out. Not only can you not opt out, you don't know who owns the data. Everything that you do can be watched. And 2 people for every camera in China by 2022.
They have 1 billion right now on surveillance.
Right,
1 billion cameras in China right now.
With artificial intelligence for facial recognition, right? So all of this is getting built right now in China. And who's helping them do it? Microsoft, Google, right? All of these companies that want to deploy this world into our country
The heads-up visors on the helmets that the cops wear in Wuhan, China, have facial recognition technology and thermal imaging to see who may have a fever. This helps them spot potential coronavirus victims, and these expensive dome caps aren't being decommissioned when the corona event evolves. Kinda cool, kinda creepy. Not all tech advancements are designed for global dominance and privacy invasion. Imagine a doctor in New York operating on a soldier in a tent in Afghanistan with no signal delay. This technology already exists. Now let's put down the latte and examine the technology you may have never known is already in your house.
I suggest you look this. I'm going to sit here and talk about an hour about beamforming. And this is no tinfoil hat nonsense. This is hardcore fact. My base station, my Apple base station in the back room back there that sends out Wi-Fi, has beamforming technology in it, and that sucker is like 6 years old. Beamforming has been around for a long time. What it does is it signals out where the hell the signal needs to go to, and it directs the signal there. And at 20 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz, i.e. high band 5G, where the danger really lies with microwave radiation, you got a serious issue. Signal triangulation vis-a-vis the towers is extremely precise. By the way, the current towers you're using on your cell phones right now is omnidirectional signal output. In other words, if you're over here, the transceiver tower for your iPhone or your Android is beaming out all over the place. And of course it finds you, but it doesn't, dial you in. It triangulates where you are, but that's position. Hardcore, 100% undeniable flipping fact. And that fact is that the combination of the technology that exists on every damn cell phone, including the cheap ones, which is signal triangulation of where the hell you are, within a few feet, on top of the 5G beamforming technology, which is specifically designed to single you out using upper sideband or lower sideband frequency manipulation, a microwave. You can induce one of 5 different emotional states. Fear, anger, confusion, lethargy, and this is discovered in Project Bazaar. There's almost no information about it online, but it's not conspiracy nonsense. This is an established fact. Type in beamforming 5G on a YouTube search. You'll come up with 100 videos made by technology companies that are installing beamforming 5G technology. But what they don't tell you, it triangulates you, and vis-a-vis the algorithms, it uses beamforming to direct the microwave transmission directly at you. Yeah?
The unique placement of the coronavirus outbreak aligns with the date I kept repeating in Esoteric Agenda 1. April 19th or 20th, and the surrounding days is when the world has seen events like Columbine and Virginia Tech school shootings, the BP oil rig explosion, the event at Waco that ended in flames, Hitler's birthday, the day Albert Hoffman discovered the psychedelic properties of LSD, and more. Now, we will see the quarantine of nearly the whole world leading up to and through this date. Okay, could these all simply be coincidences? Sure. It also coincides with the peaceful protection of Mauna Kea in Hawaii from a multi-billion-dollar optical eye that uses lasers to get clear pictures of outer space. This will be the largest telescope in the world and is at a strategic location between the US and China. All the protectors of Mauna Kea were urged to go home, while reports say that TMT has no intention of moving forward on construction. However, they also offer no promises at present. Furthermore, while the first near-global quarantine has occurred, the tension between the US and China appears to be all about a virus.
What's the possibility of the US and China go to war in the next 30 years?
It's very high in my opinion. The Chinese military was ordered to have the capability to take Taiwan by military force starting in 2020. China knows they have to be able to sink the United States fleet and shoot down our aircraft.
This pandemic has now become China's geopolitical opportunity, and certainly the opportunity would be if China would like to be the world leader, a respected world leader in terms of global governance, and this is perhaps the time for China to set up the agenda.
The current pandemic hit the global economy hard, but perhaps while everyone's looking at the virus, these countries have their eyes on the crown.
You see, the first thing, as most of you know, is that there is a global illness going around that many people are worried about. When the disease had its first outbreak in China, it caused the Chinese government to shut down its manufacturing sector in order to help prevent the spread of the virus. Now, that wouldn't be a problem if 1/3 of all products weren't made in China. You see, China is the global supply chain of the world, so when China experiences delays in production, the entire world's economy experiences delays as well.
A black swan event is an event so big it changes the entirety of mankind's perspective. Black swans are characterized by their extreme rarity and impact. These events cause catastrophic damage to the economy and cannot be predicted by any standard forecasting tools. Black swans, by definition, are unpredictable. At least that's conventional wisdom. The Etruscans were a civilization that ruled Italy for 900 years. They believed black swans were completely predictable and that they would happen every 90 years. The idea behind the saeculum was that mankind was bound to make the same mistakes over and over again because there would be no first-hand witness left alive to remind him of his mistakes of the past. They marked their calendars from crisis moments to crisis moments. These events happened every 90 years. Simply look at American history. 1776, the Revolutionary War. 1864, the Civil War. 1945, one saeculum later, the end of World War II. These wars were resets. They were the results of crisis moments that had played out in the decade prior. The supercycle is turning. We are at that crisis moment once again. In order to really identify the coming black swan, we need to put on the correct lens from which to view the world.
As humans, we've actually been through this pattern many times before. The only difference is the appearance of the outer threat. The inner threat is always that we will go into a fear mode, change our biochemistry, demolish our creativity, and convince ourselves that we are powerless. Think about it. All that has likely happened in your life since the coronavirus outbreak is that you and your family have watched mainstream or alternative media telling you what's happening out there. All of it sounds convincing enough, and every human around you is mirroring the same believed reality. Therefore, everyone is responding in a predictable fashion. Even conspiracy theories emerging in times like these is completely predictable. And prediction is the name of the game. Old paradigm views of an elite conspiracy had more to do with people, bloodlines, and prophecies. The conspiracy of tomorrow is centered around the use of technology. Therefore, today, the conspiracy is the infiltration of human perception with the use of technology and algorithms. I bet you think you have access to the internet, don't you? I did. But the largest search engine, Google, currently indexes only 0.004% of the internet. Whistleblower Brittany Kaiser gave examples of how social media platforms like Facebook target extroverts with empowering activism ads, while introverts are targeted with paranoia pieces or contrived conspiracies, all to support a deeper agenda. This is where I had to stop and look at the nature of the content coming into my feeds. This shows that a certain amount of conspiracy is not only allowed, but it's predicted, hijacked, fabricated, and advertised to people, I guess, like me. This is calling for a more evolved approach to the solution, and maybe it's not about complex information anymore. If it becomes increasingly difficult to parse through so much contradictory information and reconcile real news from fake news, then take a tip from Paul Chek and realize that the situation is calling you to develop your discernment, not blindly accept whichever has more bells and whistles. In order to really know how to proceed, we must deviate from being given our next chess move by the screens in our house and begin to evolve our consciousness rapidly in the coming weeks and months. This is not done by reading more articles, listening to more videos, or entertaining any more external ideas. It's done by climbing the ladder to see why the anthill has gone mad. From a higher perspective, it's easy to see that the coming tech revolution will harness the power of evolutionary history in a relative blink of an eye.
There have been 4 major historical eras defined by the way we work. The hunter-gatherer age lasted several million years. And then the agricultural age lasted several thousand years. The industrial age lasted a couple of centuries. And now the information age has lasted just a few decades. And now today, we're on the cusp of our next great era as a species. Welcome to the augmented age. How many of you are augmented cyborgs? I would actually argue that we're already augmented. Imagine you're at a party and somebody asks you a question that you don't know the answer to. If you have one of these, in a few seconds, you can know the answer. We've always been limited by this need to manually push our wills into our tools, like literally using our hands, even with computers. I want to have a conversation with a computer, right? I want to say, computer, let's design a car. To come up with new designs all by themselves. All it needs are your goals and your constraints. I'll give you an example. In the case of this aerial drone chassis, all you would need to do is tell it something like it has 4 propellers, you want it to be as lightweight as possible, and you need it to be aerodynamically efficient. And the computer is coming up with this stuff all by itself. No one ever drew anything, and it started completely from scratch. And by the way, it's no accident that the drone body looks just like the pelvis of a flying squirrel. It's because the algorithms are designed to work the same way that evolution does.
So if supercomputers are sifting through billions of years of evolution to arrive back at the same anatomy of creatures that have been here for a long time, then what does that say about us and our bodies? There seems to be so much fascination about our technology that we forget we still don't understand the human body or its potential. People like Wim Hof dealt with ridicule their entire lives until scientists finally proved that his breath practices allow people to override their own nervous systems. Over 100 years ago, Santiago Cajal studied neurons and was curious about glia, which make up the majority of brain matter. But his brother, Pedro, raced to finalize the neuron doctrine, which gave all intelligence credit to neurons. Science passed off glia as packing material, unimportant. Dr. Andrew Kobe now says that neurons may be involved perhaps solely in reflexive or pre-programmed behavior, while astrocyte glia could be the mechanism for higher-order thought processing, namely imagination, creativity, and intuition. To carry this thought forward, glia runs through the entire body with a fiber-optic quality and is our most interconnected thinking apparatus in the body. The fascia, or connective tissue, is a liquid crystalline network that connects to every organ, every kind of tissue, and can transport photon units of information. This is how you can respond to a touch of your toe before your brain even receives the signal. The nervous system works at about 250 miles an hour, whereas the fascia communicates at near light speed with a fractal distribution system. This tissue is made up of collagen, ground substance, and water. It's healthiest when it's moved in dynamic ways, well hydrated, and rested. Today, sitting is the predominant human activity. Less movement, poorly hydrated, and hardly rested. That's the state of our bodies. 5G radiation is said to be absorbed most in the epidermis and dermis layers of the skin. This is a part of our fascial system, and it communicates through photons. But while we marvel at technology doing this, our body has its own fiber optic system. It's perfectly built, Like Buckminster Fuller's tensegrity model, it can withstand and adapt to many kinds of stressors and forces. Cullen Smith and Santos Bonacci focus on the symbolism of the human anatomy. The pelvis of a human is centered around the sacrum bone. The root of the word denotes sacred. The root of our spine with 33 vertebrae that finishes at the cranium. The cranial sacral pathway houses cerebrospinal fluid that transports chemicals like serotonin, norepinephrine, and DMT. The ability for a human to give life through sexual intercourse is partly due to the cerebrospinal fluid that was once bathing the brain of the father. This fluid travels down the spine, past all the innervated organs, likely picking up information from the entire body, and moves into the mother. The ancients called this the sacred secret, or the sacral secretion. In the old world, this was the only way to give rise to new life. Today, we are taking part in a massive incantation to birth something altogether new. How? By letting technology hang out and study us. Everything you do on your devices is specifically designed to mimic and learn from our behavior.
Deep learning has been used to translate from one language to another, and you're going to start seeing this in Google Translate. This is expanding the computer's ability to understand and generate natural language. With supervised learning, the computer needs to be taken by the hand, and humans have to tell the computer the answer to many questions. For example, on millions and millions of images, humans have to tell the machine, well, for this image, it is a cat. For this image, it is a dog. For this image, it is a laptop. For this image, it is a keyboard. This is very painful, and we use crowdsourcing to manage to do that.
Now, if you want to know who is feeding these computers the bulk of their information, just look at all these websites that ask you to perform something a hacker bot wouldn't be able to figure out. It was barely about your security. It was always about teaching the Internet of Things how we think and discern reality. All technology has been built in our likeness, and the Internet itself is the beginning of it adopting our behavior. If AI can behave like an organism, does it matter how we classify it? If it can outthink the smartest humans, perform and outlive any human, learn exponentially, communicate telepathically with 5G precision, then they're kind of like gods, or transformers. And the only thing that would initially keep them from discovering their true oneness is with firewalls between Amazon, Alibaba, and every databank in order to become a singular AI organism.
There's a speeding up of information processing technology and a cultural reliance upon it beyond which we can't actually foresee the level of change that can come over our society. It's like, an event horizon past which we can't see. Now imagine having computers that are superhuman at every task that is relevant, every intellectual task, right? So the best physicist is a computer. The best medical diagnostician is a computer. The best prover of math theorems is a computer. The best engineer is a computer, right? There's no reason why we're not headed there.
We've all heard about this in movies, but most of us likely don't see how close it actually is. Perhaps that's why all the mainstream media is telling us we're going to have to adopt a new normal. There have been 27 million job losses in the US alone in just a few months. One could say we're already being groomed to accept the new normal. And this scare of the global virus might be a litmus test to let our devices study us through the largest social experiment in history. It could also be a way to introduce new economic and life-fulfilling concepts in the minds of the masses.
Okay. What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income.
There is the possibility of providing a minimum income. The question, what will that do, is completely unanswerable. We have no idea what it'll do. See, I think of human beings as pack animals fundamentally, this is just, it's a metaphor in some sense. I don't think that people can be happy unless they are burdened down with something, like a sled dog is burdened down with something. You have to have responsibilities. They have to be important responsibilities. You have to be sequenced in your time. You know, most of the people I have in my clinical practice, if they're not employed, they just fall apart.
A few months ago, most people would call you a doomsday preacher if you talked about a global pandemic coming that will lay off millions and transfer trillions of dollars of wealth. More so if you said the pandemic might be only a cover story for the funneling of more power and more resources into fewer hands.
The great devaluation coming in the 2020s will witness the largest transfer of wealth in human history. Currencies will be devalued. This devaluation will cause a collapse. Government actions and regulations will be taken to defend against the depression.
Before the BP oil rig explosion on April 20, 2010, CEO Tony Hayward sold off 1/3 of his stock, avoiding a massive loss. Just prior to the coronavirus economy hit, the largest historical exodus of 1,332 CEOs took place. How is it that the super wealthy always seem ahead of the curve on stock market cycles that seem completely random to the majority? Well, have you ever seen what all the data you've produced looks like? What about the data of entire populations? The world?
In the days before smartphones, laptops, and personal computers, data was hard to come by. It took a lot of time and effort to record measurements and store them there. Computers have helped shorten the time it takes to collect, summarize, and store data. Your phone records your location, the apps you use, and how long you use them. And then all those apps that you use are each collecting their own data on you.
Big data is bigger than big oil, and was built to serve a centralized group of power. Most people don't understand the gravity of what our data means to data companies. It's not purely about selling you stuff. It's about analyzing human behavior and how to predict how situations might go. Imagine being able to consult a supercomputer that plays out all possible reactions to a chess move. Well, that's what big data does for those who own that data. We never had a say in the matter. We just got sold the technology that allows us to give them our data. But most people don't even know how that data gets shared across industries and what kind of digital picture it shows about who we are to those who we don't know and will likely never meet.
Individual traits and attributes can be predicted to a high degree of accuracy based on records of users' likes. The system CityBrain, which was implemented in Hangzhou, China, starting in 2016, takes this concept one step further. The goal of CityBrain is to minimize traffic in the city. Unlike Google Maps, it's also run by a company, a huge retailer called Alibaba. Alibaba claimed they were able to increase traffic speed by 15% in an area where they had been given the power to control over 100 intersections.
The internet itself is at the precipice of coming alive. The head is crowning, if you will. As more city brains come online and fuse with the human experience, perhaps the rise of AI will be uncontrollable at some point.
So that all the phones, all of the chips and all the phones and all the laptops and all the server farms together, if you count up all those transistors combined in all the ones that are connected, if you count up all the links like synapses in the web, if you take up all the storage in the entire world that's connected online, it becomes a very, very big brain.
When you have lots of machines, you get big data. That's why we've got the AI wave today. We've got lots of compute power, and this world of the internet and all this compute power is enabling us to generate vast amounts of data as we put more and more stuff online. And then you put people in, and we created the social networking, and boy, have we said we like it. And those two things together create the social machines that are the Amazons and the Facebooks and the Twitters and the web itself and the Wikipedias and the Googles.
With 5G, the Internet of Things comes alive, right? Mm-hmm. I can be in a store and ask my refrigerator what I need. I can ask what aisle ketchup is in the supermarket, because I'd have access to all of that data because of 5G could get to me quickly. How concerned are you with the idea that China could take that information and use that information, or anybody can take that information our own government to monitor and to manipulate?
It has already. That's the bad news. It was already determined that Huawei had taken data, routed that data to mainland China for analysis, and then routed it back to the destination that it was originally intended. And that was actually the impetus for current administration's banning of the use of Huawei's equipment.
Quick history lesson. In 1949, Mao Zedong announced the beginning of the People's Republic of China. In 1978, there were no private Chinese companies. 3 years later, and 5 years after Mao Zedong's death, private companies were swiftly on the rise. In 1987, Ren Zhengfei won a contract with the People's Republic of China, who in turn protected Huawei. Today, Huawei and Samsung are the leading smartphone vendors in the world. The revolution belongs to 5G technology and the rise of AI, and China is rumored to be ahead of the US. By 2025, China plans to be the leader in 10 tech fields such as driverless cars, AI, robots, and quantum computers. By 2035, they wish to be the world's leading tech innovator. By 2049, the 100-year anniversary of the People's Republic of China, they aim to be the global power. Full stop. If any of this is true beyond global theatrics, then what we are experiencing right now might be the fight for the crown on covert grounds. Graham Allison points out that Thucydides wrote, "It was the rise of Athens and the fear it instilled in Sparta that made war inevitable." Out of 16 historical accounts of a superpower watching another rise swiftly through the ranks, 12 instances ended in war. China has had the fastest growing economy since the birth of the internet. But should we really be fearing China, the Chinese government, Chinese technology? Or is that all a left-hand, right-hand magic trick to get us bickering about the key players and ignoring the real dilemma? What exactly is this technological creature that we're building?
Come on, interact with me.
Wait a minute.
Yes, what is it you want to know?
Who the hell are you?
Me?
I'm here to do your every slightest bidding, to fetch and carry for you, to work tirelessly and selflessly on your behalf, always ready, always willing, no job too small or too menial. Are you sure you mean agent? I mean that I'm a software agent. I am merely a simulacrum, an artificial and completely customizable personality, and I only exist as what we call an application in your computer. I have the honor to provide instant access to every piece of information stored digitally anywhere in the world. Any picture or film, any sound, any book, any statistic, any fact, any connection between anything you care to think of. You have only to tell me, and it will be my humble duty to find it for you and to present it to you for your interactive pleasure. Is there anything I can do for you now, Mr. Adams, sir? Well, yes, you can stop being so obsequious for a start. Allow me to present you with my control panel. Would you care to alter me in any way which takes your fancy? Just touch the appropriate control. Okay, Buster. What do you want now? Get a bloody move on, can't ya?
While everyone sits at home in corona quarantine, we're all consuming far more content and producing volumes of new data. Meanwhile, the 5G revolution is ushering in the customizable AI butler to feed us with only the information we want in exactly the way we want it. Only it will no longer be on our devices. It will increasingly integrate with the human until it becomes invisible and second nature.
The only way to stay connected to everyone is to be entirely open. That's the only way that the engines know which of your thoughts to send to other people and which should come back. Well, I'm offline right now at a conference, but as soon as I walk off and put my earbud back in, then my engine will start catching me up at 800 words a minute, faster than anyone could possibly speak, but still slow enough for the brain to understand, just on the important things, just on the things that matter to me. All the implicit associations, all the hidden biases that study after study after study after study have shown are in everyone's heads, they get picked up by engines. The fact that college professors are more likely to respond to enquiries from men, picked up by the engines. It's not clear enough to quantify, it's not clear enough to defend against, it's not one thing that you can pull out of the enormous web of connections and patterns that the engines pick up. And you should have seen the fury when one CEO said, well, that's the way it should be. Engines should reflect the biases of the people who own them.
While the biases of most of humanity are at present, according to the tone in all of the art and documentaries lately, is filled with doom and gloom and a couple New Agers cheering on the ascension to 5D. The vast majority of humans are always late to picking up on the future. Technology that would blow most people's minds are usually in a research facility for decades while scientists figure out how to weaponize it. The internet and all telecommunications technology is not immune from this. And in fact, the internet itself might be developing its own immune system.
For this 5G grid to be there, and for this active denial system to be there, you've got to automate the response to hacking. You've got to make it fully autonomic to make it safe for the people. Otherwise, France will come in and microwave Copenhagen. Whatever, China will microwave New York. That's the threat, isn't it? It's China and America. Let me get it right here. You've got to keep up with the theatrics, You can't have that. So you've got to put in a system which can protect itself. So it needs to be autonomic. It needs to be artificial intelligence running it. Because you can't have that human error. You can't have that human delay. If France is going to microwave Copenhagen, you don't have time for someone to see the signal and go and push the button. By the time they do that, the city's already microwaved. You've got to have it fully automatically responsive. You need to give it lethal autonomy. And they're talking about that as well. If you look at some of these things through here, and like I said, it's a national priority. And it says here, down the bottom here, achieve fully autonomous capability for sophisticated attack scenarios. We're giving the internet its own immune system. And what is the internet? The internet is a virtual life of its own. It really is. And that may be a strange thing for people to think about. Could life inhabit a body? Could something that was simply a series of mainframes and simply a series of computers and hard drives and this energy actually be a life of some sort, like a child? And could everybody who's plugging in and interacting with the internet be like a neural node in the brain of this child that is learning from everybody who's doing all this stuff?
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, in the name of God. Now I know what it feels like to be God. It feels like to be God.
Max Egan is a friend and usually on the cutting edge of the global elite as he calls out the US versus China tension as theatrics. David Icke says that China's role is to act as the role model for the US when the next coronavirus outbreak happens, likely this coming fall.
Hoax.
The current quarantine is the litmus test of how close to martial law people will go before resisting. The crown is said to be out there, lurking, when it's truly within. So don't underestimate the power of independent, artistic, and evolved media. This is how the control equation comes unraveled. The equation I speak of was built to funnel all resources and power into very few hands. So in response to this centralized power, a decentralized system of data communication was born. Blockchain is the technology behind cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but can do far more than just transfer value. Blockchain transactions produce data, and in a decentralized world, every independent computer holds and verifies the transfer of data, rather than a centralized group with private control of the network.
Bill Gates is trying very hard to shift the patenting issue now to digital. So you just take a genomic map and you say, my invention, you don't create a seed. Seed is self-organized, self-making, and evolution in continuity. Just by making a map, a genome, and you have no idea what the seed does. And this is something he's pushing very, very hard. My book records how he financed DivSeek. I've talked about how he's pirated seeds we have saved that tolerates salt and floods, and he says invention. This biopiracy is a bit like Columbus, where Columbus is supposed to have discovered America, when he basically went as a pirate. Why do I call him today's Columbus? Because he's carving out new colonies. Software should have stayed open software.
A group called Quantum Materials Corp developed the traceable nanotechnology to be injected into the skin with a vaccine called quantum dots. The Gates Foundation simultaneously helped build the United Nations digital identity platform called ID 2020, which according to payments.com utilizes immunizations to serve as a platform for digital identity. The plan for this digital identity is to be pushed out to every human on the planet. So if this technology is anything like our cell phones, you'll probably need an update shot every few years. Do you see the pattern here? Do people have any say in the matter of what gets injected into their skin, regardless of the external circumstances? At present, many people protest the idea of mandatory anything, let alone vaccines that let strangers inject a mystery substance into your bloodstream without question. Why? Because they claim science is on their side, like the witch hunters and colonists claimed God was on theirs.
And what makes you think what your scientists are writing is any more truer than my saints?
Because there are volumes of proven data, numbers,
Have you poured through the data yourself? The numbers, the figures?
Well, no. No.
Oh, interesting. So let me get this straight, Mr. Reynolds. You get your information from a book written by men you've never met, and you take their words as truth based on a willingness to believe, a desire to accept, a leap of, dare I say it, faith?
So next time you find yourself frustrated about the decline in vaccinations in America, remember that it's only because of the dramatic success of vaccines that we could even think of having this debate. Only by understanding and accepting these psychological pitfalls that we're all so susceptible to will we be able to solve this problem, and that is what science is all about.
Yes, the movement is growing, unfortunately. And so yes, there are more anti-vax people today than there were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, what have you. And that's bad news. The problem is that more and more of the anti-vaccine movement is not specific to vaccines. It's actually more an anti-government movement, a lack of trust in governance, which extends to include science and scientific admonishments that may come from government sources, whether it's public health leaders or organized medicine, what have you. And it makes the battle of fighting this inappropriate, incorrect perspective about the role of vaccines in saving lives. It makes fighting it very, very difficult because you're not really fighting to the message. You're fighting to a larger social problem, a larger political problem that very few people in public health are prepared to address.
Anyone wonder why it seems completely normal for a lady that shows up with Neil deGrasse Tyson to seem very authoritative and place a blanket statement over anyone who has any of the myriad objections to government-mandated injections as being enemies of the state? If you don't say yes, you're anti-government. If you question the ingredients, you're anti-science. If you probe to see if there's a deeper agenda to the media-propagated vaccine hysteria, you're a conspiracy theorist. Because the science is on our side. You can't see it or challenge it. We'll summarize it for you and put it on our websites, but you got to take our word for it. This is really more of an experiment on the human population than anything, and if you say no to it, authority steps in. It's not science, it's authority.
Science is a methodology. It's not like a paradigm per se. So I can use an objective method, which is scientific, but I must use my subjectivity to try to even vaguely understand what is needed by the other. By being there, I am part of the experiment, so I am a subject of the experimental setup as much as the plant or the animal that I'm looking at.
You can kind of control them, but you can't cure them. You can't win this triumph that was part of the ideology of the onward march of science and the onward march of medicine. We were supposed to have no disease by the year 2000. With all of these, you could call them conspiracy theories, or you could call them alternate narratives. What's becoming visible is incredible distrust in scientific and political authority.
Well, vaccines are a miracle. They're fantastic. Anything that makes people hesitate to give their children these vaccines creates risk. Risk for the children who don't get vaccinated, and risk for children some of whom don't have immune system. And so they're benefiting from the fact that the community protection means the disease doesn't get to them. Getting the word out that yes, vaccines are great, the safety data is very, very clear, including any of these specific concerns. That's very important to our foundation. Every country, the rumor mill often works against us there. So we'll have to see how that one develops.
So where does all of this leave us with the vaccine for the coronavirus?
Well, I will say it's 3 phases. The acute phase we're in now, the semi-normal phase until we get a vaccine, and then the truly normal phase after the vaccine has protected all of us.
Friend? Who's he? Watch. Friend. You are free to go anytime you want to, but remember, you need this. You need it now, don't you?
Why, if your objective is to protect children against serious infectious disease, why would you take away the option of how parents do that? And she said, because if we allowed parents the choice, it would destroy our MMR program. In other words, the concern was for the protection of the program over and above the protection of children.
Theorists are calling Bill Gates the Antichrist because of a Microsoft injectable blockchain implant patent number 060606. The rebuttal? Well, it's not exactly 666. And then there's HR Bill 6666.
Congress.gov shows that it was introduced to the House of Representatives on May 1st. So far, there have been no actions on it. So it is real, but we're verifying, does HR 6666 require people to get vaccinated for COVID-19? Our main source is the bill itself. There's not a single mention of vaccines in the text, period.
No mention of vaccines, but $100 billion being put towards tracing and tracking COVID-19 carriers, much like China is tracking the same with those nifty helmets. So, could that money go towards RoboCop helmets in America? There are many rumors surrounding Bill Gates, and I'll stay neutral to all of it. If Dr. Gates... Oh, I'm sorry, he's not a doctor. Okay, so Mr. Gates. We've never met, but I appreciate your offer to vaccinate. You were talking about the data that supports your vaccination as if it's tried and tested on the greater population. It hasn't been. The creation of vaccines, like for COVID-19, are done in a race against time, whereas boosting immunity the good old-fashioned way is tried and tested by evolution. Never before have we injected viral substances, along with a laundry list of other questionable ingredients, directly through the skin with a needle. Historically, a virus will enter through the mouth, eyes, or nose. This allows the body to detect and mount a defense against pathogens. And while most people believe getting sick is when a dangerous microbe finds you and enters you, there's also the strength of one's immune system, which could withstand foreign pathogens if disciplined. This means that your multi-billion-dollar pursuit to inoculate the world is rivaled by the protection of a well-fed, well-exercised, highly playful, and nature-balanced discipline. Because you've generously offered me your medical advice, I'll offer you my healing advice. Your posture needs some work, and I'd love to see your vital statistics. Lipid panels, blood platelets, microbiome, all that data, and I'll customize a spiritual protocol involving cold water plunges and plant medicines just for you. You have my word. If you decline, that's okay. And I thank you for understanding as I decline your medical offer as well. We are all sovereign. We don't need a document or ceremony for this coronation. I recovered my sovereign crown the moment I woke up and remembered my purpose and place. I vowed in that moment to have only love as a solution in all of its various forms. As the protectors of Mauna Kea have shown the world, saying no is also a form of aloha, a deep loving presence that we share like breath. Kapu Aloha is the basis of the effort to keep the world's largest telescope from illegally being built on their sacred mountain. They don't care if you believe it's sacred, but they have an international claim for it. The subleasers of the land have no claim to it and are violating international laws as they proceed in their construction. These are war crimes, and yet the Hawaiians maintain that aloha and peaceful non-compliance is the way forward. I agree, and in that loving manner, I decline medical advice in which the data is private and central. When it becomes open source and decentral, then let's talk. That was fun. You see, I would love to live in a world with less digital distraction, less pollution, less of a lot of things. And I long for a healthier telecommunications platform than we currently have. But for some reason, here we are with tremendous infrastructure already in place for instantaneous sharing of ideas in all languages, in high fidelity, in real time, and simultaneously, since the beginning of cameras and microphones, never has there been such a diversified army of journalists and artists just waiting to realize themselves. The problem I see is less with the centralized groups of power and more with the untapped potential of the rest of us. When I look at the tone of the media being made during Corona quarantine, it's pretty grim. On any side of the debate, whether it's mainstream or conspiracy. But you know what I see more than the problem? A huge opportunity for an art revolution. One that plants the seeds of rapid transformation while humanity wakes up to itself. Not all waking up is pretty, and there are side effects. But the people who have already awoken to this reality need only to help usher people through this portal into an awakened world that we inherit. According to those who study cycles of time, we've seen this pattern before. The planet and its fractal inhabitants are due for a wake-up call to something global and unanimous. We must lift up our community. The way I choose to do it is through art. I feel the infrastructure for a large-scale shift of power is already in place. The fact that more people have nice cameras and microphones in their pocket and have access to free editing apps is a great start. The YouTuber or vlogger rivals the scope and size of the mainstream media. The biggest difference is top-down organization. But a true media or art revolution would be a grassroots explosion of people remembering who they are and why they're here. That's what this film is. It's a beacon to only those ready to wake up to a new reality. If you feel disoriented as you realize this world is different than you once believed, there are those of us who've been waiting for over a decade to support you. It can be scary for many who once depended on believing the system of control has their best interest in mind. It can be daunting to realize that this isn't a movie about a fictional world. You're in this movie. You're in this quarantine, like everyone else, unless you're in Sweden not giving a fuck. But regardless of what you believe is the real story about coronavirus, the solution remains the same. This is a moment where all of you who began waking up years ago are being called to step up your rank and usher more people through the portal of awakening. If you think awakening sounds too soft or mystical, I mean people coming to terms with the horrors on this planet so we can finally introduce a systematic solution that is obvious, irresistible, irrefutable, and therefore inevitable. There is no running from this moment, and there is no better time than right now to begin mass-producing media and art of an incredible caliber. one that illustrates the top of the spiral ladder and the depths of the human sickness of humanity while being impartial to the perpetrators. There needn't be a crusade or witch hunt to bring pain and misery to those who've inflicted institutionalized harm against humanity. No, the real punishment is treating all sick people the same exact way, with a basis of love and compassion, with the service of science and the blindness of unconditional love. Some say that it is our right to be angry and even to hate the enemy. Yes, you are allowed in this free world to feel exactly how you feel, own it and honor it. But I say that most people's enemies exist only on screens and don't even deserve the attention that that title gives them. Aligning with our principles, no matter what the scenario, will always allow us to live from the right place and incorporate the right solutions. Our enemy is only the willful ignorance of the solution that is right in our face. Literally, because there's a computer right in your face, and that computer, with your heart and mind, can provide incredible service to humanity as we wake up from a lie that can no longer be held up. So don't fool yourself into believing we need more than we presently have to wake up the right people. We don't need 7 billion people to wake up, because most people will follow the trend no matter who's winning. But as the world begins waking up through 2020, you'll know it's because you and I have been flooding the internet with evolved messages and resolute action, and even driving innovation in free speech and censorship-neutral media platforms. People, over the past 30 years, the internet, social media, smartphones with cameras and microphones, all the software and technology built to allow us to connect with one another better and innovate higher media and higher art, has all been built to incredible specifications for us. And it's already in place. The jump to 5G assures that since you're already exposed to this frequency assault, we might as well flood this network with meaningful art that inspires more people to wake up so they can wake up their community. If we're going to use blockchain technology, which could decentralize data and currency so that no central power can corrupt or hijack the network, then look no further, because the people with that technology and with that mindset are already in place and ready to scale. If a new economic system is underway, then it's incumbent upon us to hijack it with peace, love, transparency, and any tool at our disposal. Perhaps growing food and learning how to forage will be useful for more and more people coming up. Spark some community. If quarantine lasts longer or comes back harder, be prepared and have a plan. If everything's moving digital, use digital art forms to increase the caliber of content available online. If the Internet of Things is studying human behavior, let's show it something other than the lowest denominator of our species. Instead of focusing on how everything seems wrong, look for how it's actually perfectly orchestrated for exactly what our species needs to wake up to. If you forgot what that is, spend some time in nature. Start a breath practice. Meditate. But whatever you do, do it now. Never has there been a more ripe opportunity to change the course of history by changing your inner trajectory. But let's set a few things straight. Every radical change in history has been fueled by a crusade against the enemy. But as we step into the post-quarantine world, who we are and what we express must be fueled by aloha, unconditional love. That radiant force must be brought into the darkest of moments. For those who have ever gone through a harsh wake-up, a deep plant medicine experience, or any struggle, you should know that the way we prepare, the space we put our mind and bodies into, and the people we are with make all the difference between beauty and horror. The reason we come together must surpass the forces that would split us apart. Don't stoop in fear because your screens are telling you how bad the situation is. Make art to hijack the timeline, hijack the story, and hijack the future. Flood the internet with your voice. Don't even preach, sing. Remind people that the redemption song, a peaceful revolution, and an inevitable victory is a choice that we the people claim. We don't need to wait for an opportunity, and right on cue, there's also this huge opportunity. I don't know about you folks, but I'm ready to move on to the next part of this esoteric agenda. I bet you all thought that esoteric meant bad, and that agenda meant you're fucked. If there's kids listening, the F word also amplifies excitement. And I'm excited, because the esoteric agenda is right on cue. And it's about fucking time. We are the ones who inherit the new world. And this isn't the end, folks. It's just the beginning. The conversation of how we would like to inherit this new world starts now.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now was blind, but now I see.
Look, I don't know the best way to do this, but I've been working erecting 5G masts on towers like the one behind me for the past few weeks while everybody else has been in lockdown. And we don't crack open these kits because we're explicitly asked not to. But well, perhaps the best thing is for me to show you. It's best if I just show you, look. There's a piece of fucking 5G kit and it says COVID-19 on it. I don't really know of any products produced by any company that produces circuitry like this that has the brand name COVID-19, but that's what it says on the fucking circuit board. Not a fucking conspiracy theorist. Obviously I've read all that stuff online about coronavirus and COVID-19, but why the fuck are they putting circuitry like that in towers like that? I just don't fucking understand.